Good morning, guys. Josh here, Michigan Whitetail Management. We have a topic to discuss this morning that I think is pretty important, and it's something that that you hear a lot of the other side of the spectrum coming at you all the time. So we thought we would change it up a little bit, and like I said, come to you with an idea here, an approach that to me is pretty important. So the topic today is 3 reasons why you should not plant a food plot. Not 3 reasons why you should, but 3 reasons why you should not. So in our business here, we not only design, we implement, we construct, we make sure those plots are in the same or the right location, and we also implement those food plots. We put those in the right spots. We create them, we plant them, we till them, we plant them, and we also maintain them. But there is times where you should not, as a landowner, promote or plant a food plot. And it's hard for a lot of guys, maybe in the industry and even myself, to get that to come out on a productive or a constructive way to a landowner, to have them see that, because everything right now is based around especially here in Michigan Michigan, where the no baiting ban is on now, and everybody is looking to plant food plots. So with that said, 3 reasons why you should not plant a food plot. I strongly believe that the first and foremost reasons, and the ones that we see the most of, the reason not to plant a food plot is the accessibility, and the exits of that food plot. Here in this area, like we always talk, we are dealing with smaller parcels, 10s, 20s, 40s, 80s, and we are on some bigger parcels, and there's bigger parcels obviously in the area, but and even in the Midwest on some stuff, smaller parcels are very, very crucial in the design and the placement of a food plot. So keeping that in mind is the access into that food plot, meaning like on your morning sets, obviously. What I see a lot of, and the farther we go here, the more we see some of these properties, the more predominant that it becomes that this has been happening for years on farms. And what I'm saying is these food plots, or these destinations, up until this point, have been structured around a bait pile, let's say. And a bait pile to me is the same theory as a food plot when not handled properly. So what we see is, we go into the farms. I was actually just looking at a farm last week, a partial land last week, and they feel that there's only one spot to plant a food plot. Now, on a 20-acre partial, sometimes that is very true, but there are other ways to create that so you can be successful. Now, like we've always talked in the past, it might take some construction to make that happen, but me, in this business and a hunter myself, I would highly recommend that you stop and think that through before you implement that food plot. And here's the reason why. If that accessibility, if that food plot is placed in the wrong spot, first and foremost, your accessibility, such as a morning hunt, you cannot, do not destination food plot. Do not set that in an area where that's a destination food plot and you're trying to hunt it in the morning without a way to get into it without blowing deer off. And especially here, here's a perfect example. Here in the state of Michigan, our gun season November 15th, our opener's November 15th. And time again, what I have seen over the years is you have your, especially when the baiting was legal, and it's an education thing to try to show the public how we get from point A to point B. So where we're at with that is you have your favorite deer blind, rifle blind, and it's overlooking a field, and you can shoot a long ways, and people feel that they don't want to have two blind locations. They only want to have one, and that's what we need to do. Well, here's the problem with that. In a morning setup, in a destination feed location, your deer are already in those fields, as we know, at night. And sometimes, before daylight, those deer are already back. Nocturnal deer movement, those deer are already back in those bedding areas, have already went through the transition areas, are already back into those bedding areas before daylight. So if you continue to try to hunt those destination plots or the destination ag fields, just because with a rifle, so to speak, is you can cover a big area, that is probably the most detrimental thing that you can do to your property. And here's why. One, it's not only going to ruin that hunt, it could ruin other hunts. Not only is it going to ruin other hunts, 2 or 3 times last year, we were talking to guys on parcels that we're looking at now to try to cure that problem, has happened is they felt that they could get in there before daylight and be undetected. And sometimes you can, because on an opener of a rifle season at the peak of the rut, there are a higher percentage that if you do blow deer out of there, some of those does will come back, or you're going to see other deer that were bumped from someone else to your location. And if them does are in your location now, that might have been 2 or 3 farms over, and that buck was weary enough and they passed through a buck bedding area and picked him up on the way through, or they bumped that buck himself, he may end up in your location in your field on a morning hunt. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is you are the hunter that bumped him. And so what we're trying to design here and help people focus on is to really focus on those access and those exits to and from those locations. So the number one reason here is why not to plant a food plot is if you cannot get that food plot in the right location. To me, I'd rather see you put a 1/4 acre shot plot somewhere than a 3 acre food plot and force nocturnal deer movement. So, and there's reasons behind that. One we just spoke of, a couple we just spoke of. The other side of that spectrum is the exit. So we talked about the entrances, now the exits. When you are on those destination plots, or you're on those large ag fields or larger ag fields on these properties, you have to remember that unless it's a situation where, like, for example, your row crop was taken away and your rifle blind, so to speak, is set far enough away that off the corner of those, let's say you're out in the center of the field and you've got some native grass around you and it makes sense, and you're able to shoot 100 yards of that food plot, so when dark comes you're able to get down and get out of there. Those deer continue to feed, or once they bypass you can get out. To be honest with you, 90% of the parcels that we look at are not set up that way. They're set up to be comfortable in a rifle blind setup, let's say, since we're talking about that, and they are set up to be easy to hunt, but they're not functional. So the access or the exit part of this, you just want to make sure that if that is not going to be feasible, that you cannot get in and out of there undetected off that acre, 2 acre, 3 acre plot that you're looking at establishing. Don't plant it. So there's other ways to get habitat improvement on your property to hold those deer. Whether you have oak stands, now if you're dealing with solid pine trees, then you need tonnage. We all need tonnage. You need tonnage to hold deer, but um, it needs to be thought out. You need to be able to, like a pine tree location, take those pines out, get some hardwood regeneration going in there, put those native grasses, and make sure that that food plot is in the right spot. If it's not, don't plant it. So the second one is your soil type. So what I mean by soil type is if you're in a location where you have like ferns growing, for example, that pH in those areas, and sometimes those areas might be in a opening where, you know, it's just you get lucky enough that that area is where that plot needs to be after it's thought out and after it's designed and it's walked through. If that soil type has those ferns, your pH is usually around like that 3.5 or 4. And what I see more and more of is the I hear this slogan is just plant it. Just go ahead and plant it. It's the pH is good enough. You know, there's stuff growing there, and obviously now it's going to plant. You know, fertilizers overrated, and lime. I've tried the lime stuff before; it doesn't work. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. And the reason I say that is if the soil type is not, if you cannot get that soil, whatever type it is, if you cannot knock those ferns down and use that to get that organic matter build up in those locations, and it's going to take a lot of fertilizer and a lot of lime and a lot of, you know, Morgan's Composting has the food plot dude there, that 844. If you cannot put that in there to get that where it needs to be, do not plant it. You're wasting your money, because what the end goal is tonnage. And if it's short, if it's not going to grow, if it's kind of going to look shoddy, and the chances, like a spring plot or a midsummer or a beginning of the summer plot here, let's say, if it's not right and that soil is not right, that food plot will be gone by the end of the summer going into fall. It's not going to do you a bit of good. So make sure that that is handled properly. Soil type is a big deal. Soil type and soil condition. So the last thing I have here, as far as the third reason not to plant a food plot, and a very strong reason, the cost to build, construct, and maintain a food plot is obviously going to be higher than what your in an average. We have done a video on that quite some time ago, but the average cost of a hunter here in Michigan that hunts 3 months here, you know, bow rifle and through the muzzleloader seasons, let's say, is around $300 to bait, or was to bait, to have a baiting location or a couple bait spots. Now that varies. If you have your own product, obviously it's less than that, corn and stuff like that. But if you were buying that in the past, it's around that $300 mark. So once you create, and you have this product or this food plot created, you could probably seed it. You can seed it and fertilize it for $300, but depending on the acreage, obviously. But if you do not have the means to plant it correctly, and to maintain that, I highly recommend not planting it. Look for other options to create that mass or that tonnage that you need, because the cost of having a food plot is higher than putting a bait pile out or having a bait location. So those are three very strong reasons to me that you should not plant a food plot. And it's just something that you have to be honest with yourself going into it, and that's where we come in. You know, we come in to take that. My whole goal is here, and we looked at this before. My whole goal is here is to help educate and to promote habitat improvement, and to have guys understand what it does, how much it costs to do that, and what your end product can be if it's handled correctly. But the fact of the matter is, like the third topic there, if you cannot If the money is not there and you don't have the equipment to do it, please reach out to us. And there's many ways to get to that end goal for your property. If it's step by step, if you can't do it all at one time, if it's step by step, there's many ways to get there, or we design it and you can handle it yourself over time. We can consult with you. But taking those three things into consideration, 3 ways or 3 reasons not to plant a food plot. Those are 3 reasons I feel are very strong. Your access and your exits, number 1, first and foremost. You can't get in, you can't get out. You're going to blow deer and it's going to make things worse. Do not plant it. Let's figure out a different way to hold those deer, create some better habitat. Start with your bedding areas, start with your native grass improvements, start with your hardwood regeneration improvements, and implement the plots at a later date. Soil type, don't plant it, don't just plant it. Let's make sure you're taking into consideration the hows and the whys and the reasons that you need to do to get that soil to maintain or be productive. And then the third one there that we talked about is the cost to maintain and to improve your food plots going into the future. So 3 very strong reasons that you should not plant a food plot. Thanks, guys.